Where we get closer and closer to the start of NFL training camps, still a lot of situations to play out for the Steelers. They don't expect TJ Watt to hold out despite continuing contract talks for him. But what's next in this saga? For much more on this, let's go ahead and welcome in Tyler Sullivan to the show. Tyler, it's always great to see you. TJ Watt still without a contract extension. How do you think this all ends? Will the Steelers extend him or potentially trade him?
Yeah, I think they ultimately come to some sort of an agreement. I just can't fathom an offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers where they go all in, getting Aaron Rodgers, signing him as a free agent to be their starting quarterback, trading for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith, then to go and trade away TJ Watt, the heart and soul of your organization, your defense, one of the best defensive players in the NFL, for a team that's trying to compete in the here and now. To me, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, the question will be, what is TJ Watt looking for? Because right now, when he signed his deal, the one that's expiring at the end of this season, he was the highest paid defensive player in the NFL at the time of signing. Is he trying to do that again? Is he trying to either match or unseat Myles Garrett, who's making $40 million per season? If he's trying to do that, that's a much different conversation for the Pittsburgh Steelers front office. Now, if he's trying to kind of just get to a more respectable rate, that changes the conversation as well. Right now, he's making $28 million in AAV. There's about 6 other players making 30 or more. I think that if he gets into the $35 million per year range, that puts him in the same breath as Danielle Hunter and Max Crosby, 2 guys that signed extensions this offseason. I think that makes a lot of sense for both sides. But again, we'll see what Watt's mindset is.
I love how you detailed all that out for us because, Watt, as you mentioned, the heart and soul of that team. One guy who is also looking for a contract extension is Commander's Terry McLaurin. Also the heart and soul of his team in D.C. and this fan base so loved. His name has been linked to TJ Watt in trade rumors. Is this something, though, Tyler, we should give life to?
Yeah, what's the deal with all of these teams? All of a sudden, you don't want good players anymore? Like, this is crazy to me. And this one in particular is the one that has me scratching my head the most, because Terry McLaurin, as you referenced, heart and soul of an organization, really a leader through a lot of trying times with this organization. And finally, they're starting to be on the come up. You find Jaden Daniels with the number 2 overall pick. He leads you to the NFC Championship game. And Terry McLaurin was a huge factor in all of this. He had a career-high 13 touchdowns a season ago. He caught 70% of his targets last season, which were also a career high. I just don't understand why you would want to move off of a player, or at least kind of, not be willing to go all in on a receiver that is clearly your number 1 option when you have a quarterback like Jaden Daniels on his rookie deal. So to me, this is extremely confusing, but I do think that you ultimately have to get something done. Because, like it or not, for the Commanders, you're thrust open a Super Bowl window. You were in the NFL's Final Four a year ago because you found and struck gold in Jaden Daniels. So I ultimately believe that something gets done here. It's just a matter of how long does this thing progress? Because, again, you don't want to have any bumps along the way when you're trying to usher in and still establish this new culture that you've established over the last year.
Yeah, make this all make sense for us because, as you said, it's very, very confusing. Not panicking at this point for as a Commanders fan. McLaurin and the Commanders, as we know, are hoping to get a deal done before the start of training camp. That's on July 22nd. However, he skipped all offseason workouts with the Commanders to this point. I'm still not reading too much into that. However, we're still monitoring this situation over the next week. How ultimately do you see this ending?
Yeah, I do think that they come to some sort of agreement. Again, like I said, they have a quarterback on his rookie deal. You have the financial flexibility, but similar to what we were talking about with TJ Watt, what's the kind of contract that Terry McLaurin is looking for? One that I think makes a lot of sense is if he mirrors something similar to what the Pittsburgh Steelers did with DK Metcalf after they acquired him. Yes, Terry McLaurin's a little bit older than DK Metcalf, but you're still looking at somewhere in the range of $33 million in average annual salary, $30 million per season is kind of the going rate for a number one wide receiver in the NFL. You have Jamar Chase topping the entire market, a little over $40 million per season. You look at what Terry McLaurin was previously making, $22.8 million in AAV. He deserves to be in that conversation, in that tier of elite wide receivers in the NFL, which is, again, in that $33 million per year rate. So I do think it ultimately gets done. It's just crazy that it hasn't happened already.
Yeah, a crazy waiting game for Commanders fans who hope that McLaurin stays in D.C. to help to keep them competitive in the NFC East. Elsewhere in the AFC East, can anyone dethrone the Bills in the AFC East, who are looking to win their division for the 6th consecutive season, Tyler?
Well, the short answer is no, right? I mean, obviously, you have the MVP in Josh Allen. You see the odds right here, minus 260. That's actually the steepest odds of any division in the NFL. The Bills are the biggest favorite out of any division favorite in the NFL. So the odds makers are telling you that this is the Bills division, and it has been for the last half decade or so. But if there were situations where teams in this division could rival them, possibly overtake them, I would first look at the New England Patriots, the second best odds to win the division at plus 500. My biggest question will be, what does Drake May now look like with an improved roster and coaching staff around him? He showed promise during his rookie season, but overall it was a forgetful year in Foxborough. But now you bring in Mike Vrabel as your head coach, which I think raises the overall floor of this organization. You added a lot of great pieces on defense, which I believe puts them in the conversation of maybe having a top 5, certainly a top 10 defense in the NFL. And then what do you get from Stephon Diggs and the added weapons on the offensive line? So how does Drake May make all of this work? That's my big question. And then another team in the division that's kind of in a similar boat to me is the New York Jets. I think that they have a similar top 5 defense potentially in the NFL. You bring in Aaron Glenn, who's a defensive-minded head coach coming from Detroit. The big question will be, what is Justin Fields? Is Justin Fields going to be the latest late bloomer that we've seen in the NFL, whether it was Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, or Sam Darnold last season? If Justin Fields can follow in those footsteps and actually solidify himself in the NFL, well, then you're talking about a team with stable quarterback play and a top 5 defense that makes you frisky in any division.
But the short answer, just no. Hard no. All right, moving on here. Last but certainly not least, obviously, we get closer and closer to the start. Tyler, let's get you some updated HQ headlines. Browns rookie running back Quinshon Judkins was arrested last night on a charge of domestic battery and violence, according to police in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. A spokesperson for the Browns said the team is, quote, aware and gathering more details, end quote. Judkins was selected in the second round of the NFL draft. He is yet to sign his rookie contract.
On the other side of the ball, Grant, what's the latest on some pass rusher contract disputes? Let's start with Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals still at an impasse regarding a contract extension. He has publicly said he does not intend to play on his current contract. The Bengals have offered him a short-term extension. He would like a longer-term extension with more guaranteed money in future years. He's 30 years old. Bengals are hesitant to do that. We'll see if this picks up again as we get closer to camp. Obviously, the Bengals would like to have him there and working. Same with the Steelers and TJ Watt, another 30-year-old